There's been a big question floating around on whether or not you should buy the new iPad Pro or an iPad Air. However, I think the real competition isn't the Air against the Pro, it's actually against this, Apple's regular iPad, which at this event didn't even get an update, but it's got something more important, a price cut down to an incredibly affordable $350. And with both the iPad and the iPad Air coming in a very similar form factor and targeting a very similar audience, you may think either iPad will provide the same experience. However, don't be fooled, because there are some really important differences between this iPad and this iPad Air that you need to know about. And hopefully we don't drop them anymore during this video. Now, generally, I don't like to make videos about products that I haven't used yet, but when we look at the iPad Air, it already has technologies in it that I have used. It has the same design as the last model, the same display, the same camera, same USB-C port, and really the only big difference is they switched the camera orientation from portrait to now landscape, and they added the M2 chip, which is new, but I've already had an experience using an M2 chip, not only in the Mac, but on an iPad as well. So I think I can make a lot of fair assumptions here on what the experience of using this iPad Air will be like compared to this regular iPad. So let's take a look at the iPad versus the iPad Air and see which one is right for you, because there's actually a lot of things you need to be made aware of before purchasing one of these devices. All right, the first thing we're going to go over is design, because Apple is being a little deceptive this year with their advertising of the iPad Air, because if you look at all the marketing materials, they say the display is an 11-inch display. And you look at this regular iPad and you see how it's marketed as coming with a smaller 10.9-inch display. So naturally, you'd assume the Air has a little bit bigger display than the regular iPad, and maybe that would make you lean towards picking up the Air. But despite Apple's claims that the Air has an 11-inch display, it's actually the same exact size as the regular iPad. If you look closely at Apple's website and read the fine material here, you'll see in the marketing that the iPad Air is only marketed as 11 inches, but the actual screen measurement is 10.86 inches. Now, for marketing simplicity's sake, that also gets rounded up to 10.9 inches, so they're just rounding up even further on the iPad Air. But for some reason, Apple's not applying that to this regular iPad. They're still calling it 10.9 inches. However, despite the screen size being the same, there's some noticeable differences between the dimensions of these iPads and the screen quality themselves. First of all, this iPad weighs a little more at 477 grams versus 462 grams, and it is thicker. It's 7 millimeters against 6.1 millimeters. Even though that doesn't appear like a big deal, I will say that I do notice the extra thickness on the regular iPad, and it feels a tad more chunky and more hollow than the Air because of all that extra unused space. However, I would wager that this thicker design is probably a little bit more durable too, right? But the Air does feel slightly more premium than this regular iPad. However, let's give it to the regular iPad here, which in my opinion has the better exclusive color selection here with its bright, vibrant colors of blue, pink, and of course yellow. The iPad Air's blue and purple colors look really muted, but if you like black, it does have a space gray model, and silver is available on both models if you're boring, like me. Well, actually I got a yellow one, so I'm not that boring. Give a point to me. Overall, not the biggest deal in the world, but there's some bigger deals out there. The display itself. Now, despite having the same screen size and both of these displays using LCD technology, the iPad Air has a lot of benefits to its display. First of all, it has a P3 wide color display, letting it show more colors for a more accurate picture and a more pleasing picture. And it has an anti-reflective coating that helps eliminate glares. The display also is directly laminated against the glass, further reducing reflections and air gaps. Despite those differences though, there's actually a lot of similarities with these designs. Both iPads have the same Touch ID sensor in the power button. Both the Air and the regular iPad appear to have the same cameras with the same exact specs. And yes, both the iPad and now iPad Air both have the camera in the landscape orientation, which works better when you're using the device in landscape mode or when it's attached to a keyboard. They even both have the same speakers and microphones. However, there are a few more additional benefits to the Air. First of all, the Air gets Wi-Fi 6E networking, while the regular just gets Wi-Fi 6. The Air also gets support for the new Apple Pencil Pro with its new squeeze features and barrel roll features, while the iPad is only compatible with either the first gen Apple Pencil, the one with the Lightning port, or that new USB-C Apple Pencil. It does not support the Apple Pencil 2, and it does not support the Apple Pencil Pro. And one of the biggest differences between these iPads is actually the keyboard selection. The iPad Air gets the Magic Keyboard, which comes with a really nice floating design where you can easily attach the iPad onto the back with the magnetic connectors, while the regular iPad has those connectors on the side and therefore gets a completely different Magic Keyboard folio that uses a kickstand instead of this floating design. But there's actually a lot of benefits to this iPad keyboard. First of all, you can detach the iPad from the keyboard while still keeping the back case attached for additional protection. And you can use the kickstand to prop up the iPad without the keyboard attached. Second, the iPad Magic Keyboard Folio has a row of function keys on the top for quick actions like changing the brightness or playing and pausing media. The Magic Keyboard on the iPad Air doesn't have a function key row. And it's actually funny because the function key row was touted as a new feature for the exclusive Magic Keyboard that just came out for the new iPad Pros, and this is just something the regular iPad has at the lower price point. And yeah, that's another thing. The iPad's Magic Keyboard is a lower price point. The Magic Keyboard for the iPad Air costs $300 to $350 depending on which size you get, but the Magic Keyboard Folio for the iPad is $100 cheaper. Although one weakness on this keyboard folio design is it does not get the additional USB-C port, which is nice for charging. Speaking of USB-C, it's actually a big weakness on this iPad in general because the USB-C port on here maxes out at USB 2.0 speeds at 480 megabits per second, while the iPad Air gets a USB 3.1 port with speeds of 10 gigabits per second. So if you want to attach things like external storage or you just require more data throughput for accessories, the iPad Air is the clear winner here. But overall, a pretty similar experience. But there is a pretty big difference between these iPads, and that is the chip. The iPad Air ships with an extremely powerful and capable M2 chip, while the iPad is actually using an older A14 chip. That's the same one that was on the iPhone 12. Let me just be frank here. Theoretically, there is a huge difference between the M2 and A14 chip in terms of total performance and capabilities. However, let me make another thing clear. That might not matter depending on what you're using your iPad for, because this iPad with the A14 chip, still extremely capable, and if you're using your iPad for less demanding tasks like browsing the web, watching video, social media, playing casual games, emailing, word processing, taking notes, editing simple photos and videos, or even some simple drawing and sketching without too many layers, the experience on both of these iPads is going to feel very similar. You might not even notice that much of a difference. However, that doesn't mean there aren't users who can take advantage of all the power of an M2 chip inside of the iPad Air. And it is better for users that not only want to get faster performance, but more stable performance as well for more demanding applications, not just because of the increased CPU and GPU power, but also because of the additional memory of 8 gigabytes, while the iPad only has 4 gigabytes. So for users who are editing multiple streams of 4K video, working with lots of tracks in Logic, using Photoshop or Affinity Photo with a lot of layers, or using drawing applications like Procreate or 3D modeling applications, right? The M2 chip is going to give you a much better experience. And in fact, there's some exclusive applications that will only run on iPads with an M series chip. Final Cut Pro and Logic will not run on the regular iPad, so if you have aspirations of editing video or making music with these pro applications, well, trust me, you're gonna wanna go for the iPad Air. There's also some exclusive games that only run on the M series chips. AAA level games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil Village, and Death Stranding all require an M series chip to run, so if you think you'll be playing some games on your iPad, some of those more demanding games, it is worth stepping up to the Air. The iPad Air is also the better choice if you want to use some more advanced features, like connecting it to an external monitor or using Apple's Stage Manager feature, which lets you use your iPad with windowed applications rather than the more simplified split-screen multitasking setup. The Air is also better if you need more storage. Not only does the base model have double the starting storage at 128 gigabytes, but it can also be upgraded to 256 gigabytes, 512 gigabytes, or even 1 terabyte of storage for those that need more storage on their iPad. The regular iPad is very simple. It only has 2 storage options, a 64 gigabyte option at $350 and then a 256 gigabyte option at $500, which is quite a jump up in pricing and in storage if you need more storage than 64 gigabytes. Also, while we mainly focus this video on the smaller iPad Air model, another valid reason to go for the Air is because it now comes in 2 sizes. So if you want a bigger iPad, you can get the 13-inch iPad Air at $799. This iPad is ideal for anyone who wants a bigger screen device with a slightly brighter 600 nit display. Yes, it has a brighter display even over the 11-inch Air. And those who want to use this Air as more of a full-fledged laptop replacement with more screen area to utilize professional applications or just a little more extra room to multitask with. So what's the verdict here? Should you get an iPad or an iPad Air? Well, like most decisions, there's no one-size-fits-all solution and no right or wrong answers. There's just the best answer for you. And if I had to sum it up, I would say that people should buy the $350 iPad if they want that traditional iPad experience. These are users that primarily want a tablet to browse the web, watch video, view photos, or even users that want a cheaper laptop alternative where they can use a keyboard with it, or users that want to use an Apple Pencil for jotting down notes and sketching. The iPad is a great value at $350. It might be the best value in Apple's entire lineup and one of the best deals in tech, period. It gets you 90%, maybe 95% of the features that other iPads have. It is a great device. But despite it being a great device and a great value, it still may not be the best choice for you, because if you want an iPad that you're going to treat more like a laptop replacement, and you plan to use it for either more demanding workloads or to play higher end games or even utilize some of the exclusive features that are on the M2 chip, that's when you should step up to the iPad Air. And it's especially a great iPad for anyone that needs to use it for work or school, and it is worth the increased price tag for those that plan to do a little more with their iPad. All right, I hope this video helped you out in deciding between the iPad and the iPad Air. And please let me know, which one do you plan on purchasing? If you want to support the channel, don't forget to check out my affiliate links where you can buy one of these iPads. And as always, don't forget to give me a like, subscribe to see my full review of the new iPad Air 2 and iPad Pro coming very, very soon. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.